Obviously, you know what's happening right here. Many of you have already met Chester or have had classes with Chester. But we're going to take a deep step into the life of Chester Whitmore. And I was fortunate enough to meet Chester in the early 90s. I think the first time I met you was with Eddie Reed Big Band. And I was hired with my partner at the time to perform some swing, Lindy dancing. Eddie Reed, he was one of the many big bands or many bands in Los Angeles, and he was a very interesting character. And I just wanted to mention him for just 2 seconds, is because there were so many bands from Los Angeles, and they were all pretty much the same musicians in all the bands. There might be a few different, there was 2 or 3 different trumpet players people would use the best, and different drummers. And the thing about Eddie Reed, it was so interesting, is most of these bands all charged, let's say, just to give you an example, they would all charge around $2,000 for a Saturday night gig. Well, Eddie Reed, for the same band, would charge $5,000 or $6,000. And he was a very interesting businessman for this reason, but he got all the big gigs, because all the corporate and all the quote-unquote rich people and so forth, they thought more money for a band, you would get a better band. But it was really kind of the same bands. And the thing about Eddie Reed that was so interesting, though, is he would show up with performers without telling the people that hired him. So we could be on a yacht in the Newport Harbor at a diamond convention, or it could be anywhere at some gig, and then he would surprise the audience with dancers, and then that would be us behind the stage. He would call us out for one song. That's it. We danced one number for the whole night, and it was at one of these particular private parties or business functions that he said, "Oh, I have a tap dancer," and it was this gentleman right here, and so needless to say, we started talking about history immediately, and come to find out, he lived less than like 10 minutes from me. So we were almost neighbors. He was living in, if I'm not mistaken, Gardena at the time, and so that's how I got to meet Chester. And I was, like I said, I was not a very good social dancer at the time, or I wasn't a good partner dancer at all, to be honest. But show business, they don't know anything. Just wave your hand and swing out as fast as you can. And so I started practicing and learning a lot from Chester, not just in the physical dance sense, but also through the historical sense, and also being introduced to all of the old-timers who were still alive, living in Los Angeles. Obviously, at that time, they were all very old, 80s and even 90s, Frenchy and so forth. And so that's kind of my introduction to getting to know Chester. Come to find out, he's actually 10 years prior my age. He's class of 74. I'm class of 84. Come to find out, he was one of the great dancers on Soul Train. He worked for Cornelius. Some of these names you might not know, but if you're taking notes, it'd be really smart, because you can go back on the internet and see what important institutions some of these names really are. And then, of course, he's done so much in the motion picture industry, as I have. He's taken it to levels beyond. I never did anything beyond dancing, but Chester, of course, took it to different levels he's actually quite well known for his fight choreography, which is actually an incredible thing, because I have done a couple projects with him in his choreography, and I could go on and on and on about every facet of Hollywood, the film industry. He's done it. And I think one of the most important things that Chester has been able to preserve in the dance community is he's kind of followed up in one of our old friends, Leonard Reed. For those of you who don't know Leonard Reed, we could probably talk for hours just about Leonard Reed. He invented the shim sham, but not only did he invent the shim sham, he was a 2-time Charleston champion. He had a world-class chorus line, girls. He was the first African American on the Professional Golf Association tour. He was the stage manager of the Apollo Theater for 30 some odd years. I mean, this guy lived so many lives, and he worked with, I think, just about everybody that's anybody, as far as tap companies through the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so many of these little names that are gone, let's just say, unfortunately gone. The ones that we do know, of course, are on film or mentioned in books. But there was probably hundreds of dance acts that we don't know of. But thanks to Leonard for bringing them up and sharing them with us, and now Chester's the one that has that knowledge in his head. Like I said, many of these names you might know, whether it's Tip Tap and Toe, the Douglas Brothers, the Businessmen of Rhythm. There's just so many of these small groups that never got famous and deserve to be famous or well known because they were very good professional acts. They were not amateur. And this is where Chester comes in when it comes into this small stuff that's not such public information. I could go on and talk about Chester myself, which I probably will dive in and do. But I wanted this to be more of a personal chance for some of you all to chime in and maybe ask a question yourselves. And if that would be the best thing, yeah, if I could get. And so I'd like to offer anybody, I have a microphone here, so we can actually get you to be heard on tape. And so that's my introduction to Chester. At this point, I mean, I could, like I said, I could keep talking, but I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. And if necessary, of course, I have plenty of questions or stories to tell him to tell. So first off, questions for anybody here that wants to ask Chester anything specific, because I will kick it off. How many of you know the movie Dumbo from Disney with the elephant flying, correct? All right, that's a great, right, that's kind of a thing we grew up with watching, right, the animated Dumbo. Well, there's a great scene in that movie with the two blackbirds, the two ravens, or the two crows dancing. And they do a little dance, and they sing a song. Have you ever seen an elephant fly? Go back and watch that film, because one of the things that Chester did was he actually knew, actually you introduced me to one of the brothers.
Pineapple Jackson.
Pineapple Jackson. And Pineapple Jackson was one of the original, there was Sunshine Sammy, the Little Rascals, and he was one of the little black kids in that. But he had a brother as well, and they had a duo, and what Disney did was they filmed them dancing on kind of like you can consider it like an old-fashioned green screen. And then what the artist would do would be trace the dancers and make the animation. And that's what those birds are doing. Well, I think you could take it over from here.
Well, yeah, it was called rotoscoping at that time. And they were doing the animated cartoon Walt Disney, and they saw them, and they were auditioning these dancers. And what can we do with these crows? And they saw Pineapple Jackson. He was a great entertainer in the Harlem Renaissance as well as Los Angeles entertainment. Him and his brother, and they came out with Sue Black agency, and they would do these dances, all these vernacular dances that we're doing, like the Shorty George and everything else. But they would tap and do all kinds. So they would film them, and they would say, "Hey, got an idea? Let's film these two." And they took it and drew over them the crows. So whenever you see the animation of the film, you see these crows doing the Shorty George and jumping around and stuff, you know. Because I used to look at when I saw the cartoon, I looked at it. Boy, them cartoons can dance real good. I said, wow. I mean, the footwork was like, you know. And I'm going, how did? Come to find out that they were doing that, and they had it out. And then I said, matter of fact, it was when we used to run down to Pasadena to see them, and I said, hey, did you guys get royalties for that? And then we found out we can get royalties from that. And how many years was that? 40 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah, 40 years. We had to come back and tell Disney, and we had to prove, because we had the outtake footage, and we matched it with the animation. And that's how they saw it. They said, oh, we got to pay them. They had to pay us for it. Might have been 40 years, but you're going to get your money.
And that was thanks to Chester, working with the family and then helping them bring it, because Disney was trying to, of course, it's Disney, weasel out of it, as they say. But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting...
They were great. I mean, he can play... Mr. Jackson was a type to play saxophone, tap dance, go around, tell jokes. And, of course, in those days, the people that we knew had to do everything. I mean, you might have been a comedian, but you could still dance. You could dance, you could still sing. You had to be well-rounded, you know. Not like today we are living in a, digital world. You know, you see video. You know, all the stuff we had to learn was we had to be there. I mean, actually, like, the only modern thing we had, VHSs? Yeah, VHSs. There was no YouTube stuff. None of that stuff you can go on. Ooh, look at that, look at that, look at that. You know, we had to really, like, do that step again. Do that step again. Do that step again. And you got to remember the people that we knew, they were older than us. They were much older, you know, 70s, 80s. And they're like this. Can you please get the step? learn the step, you know. But eventually, you know, the old school, when you drill yourself, it burns into your head, you know. So that was, you know, the cartoon Dumbo. That's one of the aspects of the film and stuff.
Yeah, one story that's always stuck with me in dancing is interesting enough was he contacted us and he had a cable. There was some television thing. He was supposed to hire a crew to perform, and so Chester put together a team of I think it was four couples to do a Lindyhop performance type of thing, and we had 2 weeks to do it. And of course, it was the most difficult choreography in the world. Thanks to him, it was way above our head. And but we learned it in 2 weeks, barely. But it was still at the point where we're still counting through the whole performance. It was just like, it's not in your muscles yet. And we showed up to, you know, we're backstage getting ready to go on, and we're all very freaked out, nervous. We were all of us, not just me, but all of us. And Chester comes running backstage, and he goes, they want us to do 2 numbers. So, you know, we don't even know the first number. And so Chester's like, okay, just follow me. When we go out, just follow me. We're just going to do boogie steps, you know, boogie back, boogie forward, just follow me. And we were just we were freaked out. We were just so freaked out. And Chester was calm, of course, calm as can be. And he's like, don't worry, nobody knows nothing. This is show business, you know. And he goes, and finally he looked at me and he goes, okay, you can freak out, but only when I freak out. He goes, when I freak out, then you can freak out. And that has always stuck with me for some reason. You know, this is like, I would say almost 30 years ago. And that's the thing, like, if you're not freaked out, if you just go out there and smile and just do your thing, nobody knows nothing. They don't know, the people watching you, they don't know that you've been training for a week or 2 or 5 or 6. They don't know if you just made it up on the spot or if it's, you know, and we're talking about the public on television. You know, we're not talking about like here, Lindy Hoppers for Lindy Hoppers. You guys know everything. You're like, ha ha ha. I saw that in class last week. You know, but when you're dancing for the public, it's a completely different thing. And that's what Chester's always drilled us on. And he's always says, the thing is you're doing it. That's always been the Chester thing. You're doing it. They're not. You're doing it. You're the one doing it. So it doesn't matter if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, if you're ultra advanced. That's besides the point. That's just us for each other, dancer for dancer topics. But when you're talking about performing for the public, show business, it's a completely different thing. And one of those things that Chester's been like, just do it. You know, just do it. And that's always stuck with me. And one of the things that I've always tried to share with other people. It's at least a story that I repeat with other dancers all the time. And as a matter of fact, yeah, that
happened to me just like it happened to you, you know.
Yeah.
That was French, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, Sarah, right?
Oh,
The
yes.
tap dancer. At
Great
least
one.
those of you in the tap dance community, there's a girl from Los Angeles named Sarah Reich. To me, she's one of the best in the world as far as I'm concerned. But I think I met her when she was 13 or something. And in Los Angeles, there's a huge festival every year. It's actually called, I think it's called African Market or African.
It was the African market, but they have, it was the LA Tap Fest.
Right, and they have stages all
All
over the LA Coliseum area. And there's, like he said, there's different stages, and they're all the stages are sponsored by different people and so forth. And the dance studio from, what's her name? Debbie Allen Dance Studio, she had a stage. So she's presenting different dances throughout this huge, thousands and thousands of people are at this festival. And Sarah Reich, well, first off, Chester Whitmore always had his big band, which we're going to talk about in a minute, at one of these stages. And then Debbie Allen Dance Studio had one too. And Sarah Reich was there performing. And she asked me to show up to do some Lindy stuff with one of my friends, dance partners at the time, Giselle. And to make a long story short, Giselle didn't show up for some reason. She missed her ride or whatever. So I showed up there without a partner, and I looked at Sarah. Like I said, she had been learning Lindy dancing for 2 weeks, but she's a legendary tap dancer, so she can kill it. You know, she's a dancer. And I looked at Sarah and I said, "I'm going to do to you what Chester did to me. You're going on in 15 minutes." Yeah. So this concept lives on, and yeah, that's to say. Speaking of,
I can see her eyes.
yeah,
I can picture her eyes.
she was an amazing dancer. Chester, your big band, of course, the Opus One big band, one of the great big bands of Los Angeles. I'll never forget the first time I saw your big band. It was somewhere like Willowbrook, maybe outside of Compton somewhere, and I'll never forget. I had never seen his big band before, and the number one thing that I recall was, of course, dance floor is open. Everybody's either jitterbugging or foxtrotting, and every set was so cool because, like the first set, for one song, he would have a magician come out and just do a magic act, but to the big band. The big band's playing, and there was a legitimate, real, live magician, top hat, rabbit, the whole thing with the table and ropes, and that was really cool. And then the second set, you had somebody else come out and do some type of a burlesque number of some kind for one song. And then the third set, if I'm not mistaken, you had another drum set, and you did this drum duo battle, kind of what Lionel Hampton used to do. And that blew my mind because I had only seen that in the old movies. You know, and read about it. When you look at the autobiographies or biographies of different big band leaders, which this was a very typical type of thing you would have seen with the floor shows, especially at places like Small's Paradise. So tell us, or tell everybody about your big band, the Opus One, and what your concept is of why do you keep doing this traditional floor show type of vaudeville.
Well, at that time, jazz was going. Big bands were filtering out in the later years, and all the smaller bands were coming up, and because of the money situation, and all the big bands moved over to TV. Soundtracks were old detective movies, Peter Gunn, and stuff like that. And I said, wow, you know what? I said, how come we don't have a variety show or like a like the Cotton Club show or just something like they used to, because in them days, even today, people don't see variety. Right now, we live in a world that dancers are here, that's where they stay. Singers are here, that's where they stay. Bands here, that's where they're, and then you just have to catch them whenever you can. When we used to grow up or see on television, variety shows, you see all that and all on stage. I said, that's the type of band I would want. And that was what I wanted to get. I was fortunate to work, I was looking for, of course, good readers and guys can play that style of music. And I ran into a gentleman named, my teacher was named Roger Hamilton Spots. If you don't know who, look him up. He was the arranger for Dizzy Gillespie. But I met him with, like I said, the magician, the magician. We were in rehearsal with Zola, Taylor, and the Platters. at that time. And that's another group you should look up. You know, they sing all 1950s ballads and everything else. And I met this arranger, and he looked at me, he said, and I hear these licks are going, I said, good, this should be E flat. That should be an F right there. And he looked at me real funny, he said, you play? I said, a little bit. I said, he said, well, you got a good ear. Why don't we do this? And we would sit there and arrange whatever song that was. And Roger said, you know what you should do? You know, I would get up and dance, and he would arrange, I put shows. He said, you should have your own band. I said, maybe. He said, no, just put your own band because you got too many ideas. You're putting this in, you're putting comedy here, you're putting this here. Get your own band. I said, okay, well, how the hell am I going to get a band? I ain't got no money. You know, but he started introducing me to a lot of different musicians and good guys, and he said, hey, this guy got great ideas. He comes in and he works. So then I had my first band I couldn't believe. I just thought they were just great musicians. These guys would come in. Come to find out it was Louis Spears, great bassist. I said, what? Charlie Owens that worked with the Ellington Orchestra. And half of these guys work with individual big bands. They were out still playing. And Roger pulled them out. He said, yeah, just get together, let's read this charts, and I'll do the charts. And he was writing the charts. And I said, okay, we're going to have the dancers come here, and we're going to put this here, and we'll throw this here. And he would say, ooh, there's a lot of music I got to write. And so he was writing all the stuff. And I pulled all these guys together, not knowing that all these guys were great musicians. So that was my first band. Then I needed a name. I had a band, but I had no name. And then the name came from, I'm going to tell you where it came from. You guys danced on Beverly Hills, La Cienega, and Beverly, that hotel, the Sofitel. And up to the top floor, it was a room called the Opus Room. I said, that's it. I'm going to call it the Opus One Big Band right there. And that's what I gave it a name, and that's what I started putting together. That band right there, what's only 30 years now we've been doing? And we backed up a lot of people. About the late Barbara Morrison, Kenny Burrell, H.B. Barnum. These are great, not knowing that all these greats would come in, filter in and out when they had time, in and out. But I learned a lot, boy, from those guys, watching them. Now put the act like this. If it's a singer, do this. If it's comedy, I have to watch the comedy act. But I have to put the hit gags. So, you know, if it's a flash act, the dancers have to dance this way. So I had to do that and that and that and that and that and moving around. So that's how that band became. Then we started to travel. People started calling us up. Oh, and then of course when the resurgence of swing, when it started coming back in the 80s, was great. I said, oh, wow, I would like to do that. You know, like we said, the great Eddie Reed would come in, and we had a lot of great bands. I said, oh, I would like to get my band in there. We had, what's that, Dean Morrow and stuff, a lot of, what's that other guy? Bill Elliott. All of them would come in and stuff. So I got a chance to infiltrate my band into there and got a chance to play as well. Now, that was one of the main things when it got a chance to, the swing world got a chance to say, wow, there's a big band, but all of a sudden now we got dancers coming in and people flying over here and keeping it, you know, segue. Nobody knew like how to segue act from in and out, boom, 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 coming. And now we're going to just keep the show going, regardless. You got to keep it going. When it hits, it's on. You might be tired, but you can't be tired on stage. You're not allowed to die on stage. You can die in the wings, but you're not allowed to die on stage. So
It sounds like that. It sounds to me that you have a little bit of influence from Leonard Reed on that subject.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Leonard. Yeah. You know, when I met Leonard, the great Leonard, I mean, he's the one that taught me how to put shows together. Yeah. I met him in Hollywood at a studio called Rainbow, right next to Capizio's, the famous dance star. And I said, oh, man. And I was delivering. I was just a delivery boy, you know, just delivering
Oh, yeah, not far from Hollywood and Vine.
Yeah,
actually.
right there on Hollywood and Vine, right on that tower. I walk through the door like this. And then I see these group of singers all lined up. And they're standing up, and this guy, madman on the piano. Then he looks at me, you! And I said, you're late. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I got your package here. I'm like, put it down. I said, okay, where do you want? I put it down. And I said, I'll get to walk out. No, where you going? Well, okay, you got the package. No, you're late. Get in line. Sir, let me explain something to you. He said, no, I don't want to hear nothing. Get in line. And then and the rest of the singers down said, just do as he say. Just do as he say. And I said, okay. And I get in line, and it was between some people, they put me in line. I'm going, how you doing? Now we're going to take it from the top. You got to flat on the notes, and we're going to do it again. And so they were working on this number. I'm going, huh? And he said, then he goes, dun, 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 dun. And the group is, they're singing, they're going, it's the Harlem Express coming your way. Look out, look out, look out. I'm looking at him, I'm like, ooh, this is nice. And they were just going, look how I'm doing. I'm going, do. Then he stopped and he looked at me, stopped piano, and slammed down, look, you! I said, what? You're not singing. Okay, sir. We'll try it again. Harlem Express. I'm going, sing! I said, I want that. And they said, just mouth it. I said, he said, boom. Now that's better. And I said, now, we're going to move on. Since you got the song down, I said, what song? I don't know nothing. He said, now we're going to move over to the choreography. I said, choreography? And they said, don't worry. I said, oh, I don't know it. They said, dun, 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 and they were moving. I mean, they were moving. You know the old vaudeville. You know how they go like this. They go like they go, and I'm going. What you say there? Oh, you. Yeah. Wait a minute, sir. Let's stop here. We're going to stop. I think it's a great mistake here. I'm not who you think I am. I said, I'm just a delivery person, and there's your package, and I'm going to get out of here, and God bless all you guys, and it has been an experience. I walked to the door and said, wait a minute. That's what? Tomorrow at 10 a.m., same rehearsal. And that's how I met Leonard Reed.
One thing, I had just an interesting story with Leonard too. I used to go and pick him up. He lived in West Covina, and I would pick him up, and we would take him to his children's recitals, performances for the local schools and so forth. And we would be sitting in the front row, and we're watching, like I said, 10, 11, 12-year-olds tap dance and sing and so forth. And I can't remember if they were his grandkids or if they were related or not, but as we sat there watching the show, two cute girls were tap dancing, and then they would exit, and Leonard would be sitting here next to me, and he would start counting. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3. He goes, they're taking too long. They're taking too long. The curtain should be already closed. And I'm thinking, wow, these are like little kids, children's recital, you know, and here's this guy criticizing the production of this particular show. Well, needless to say, I went home, I went to YouTube, and there's dozens and dozens of films of the Apollo during the 50s that you can see how Leonard ran the Apollo. All those Apollo shows you see from the 50s, those are all Leonard Reed. And many of them he's actually performing. Well, there's a particular clip that I just happened to bring up, and it happened to be Lionel Hampton Big Band. Oh. And Lionel Hampton Big Band, if some of you might recall, on stage at the Apollo, he'd had some, I can't remember if it was bongos or he has a xylophone up in front. And the band does this great production number on stage. And at the end of the song, Lionel Hampton turns around and he bows. And when he bows, the curtain literally goes on his head. Whoom. It's like, this is how fast things need to be in Leonard's world. There's just no downtime between acts. Everything is just boom, boom, boom. And so I was just, oh my God, this dude is like incredibly perfectionist when it comes to stage performances. And one of his acts that he would do with, I don't know if it was Willie Bryant or with Joe Louis, but it was the comedy. It's on YouTube, so you can see it yourself. But it was pure improv comedy acts they would do live.
That's all live. Pure
Improvised there was the storyline of a cashier somebody behind a register.
Who's the $10? You give him that $10.
Yeah.
So he's trying to listen to a ball game.
But these acts that Leonard would do would be purely improvisational, live at the Apollo for television. And this is the kind of guy he was. He was a one of a kind. And if he had the microphone right now,
God, we will be like this.
Yeah, he'll have us laughing for hours nonstop.
Man.
One really cool story I would like for you to tell is when you were just beginner tap dancer and you happened to help somebody on the side of the road.
Oh, okay.
I won't say who it is.
Okay. Well, at the time when I was,
you were young.
Yeah, I was studying dance. I was trying to, into this world of we call dancing. In reality, and he knows, he's laughed at me all the time. But I'm not supposed to be a dancer. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a storyteller. I do film, but I went to this film school, and in film school you have to learn how to do murder mysteries, how to lighting, but the main thing is documentaries. And of course, I love old movies. I watch all the old videos and the black and white musical. And that's what got me into what style of dancing I wanted to go into. And they got said tap dancing. I said, yeah, I wanted to learn how to tap dance. And I went to some of these schools, but the schools weren't getting it. It was kind of, okay, we're going to learn this step. Ding, ding. I said, it's not my cup of tea. I said, and my friend said, I know this guy. He works at this art institute called the Inner City Cultural Center. Go there Wednesday nights, and he'll be there. So I had my little tap shoes, and on the bicycles, in them days, it was the bicycles made like a banana seat. And went to the place, and it was locked. Nobody was there. I said, oh, man, this ain't happening. So I rode back, and this guy was on the road with the car, and tire off, had flat tire, and nobody was helping him. And I said, okay, let me get up here and do my good deed for the day and help you. I said, you need some help? And he said, yeah, I need some help. I said, okay. And I grabbed the tire, and I pulled the lever, and I put it in, and I'm up there. And he looked on my bicycle, and he saw the tap shoes. He said, oh, you're a hoofer. I said, what? A hoofer. I thought he was calling me a hooker. I said, what are you talking about? You know what? I mean, hoofer means tap dancer. I said, oh, well, a dancer. I said, oh, okay. I tap danced in my day. I'm going to tell you something. And I said, yeah, this guy telling this, he's remembering while I'm holding this big old tire up, trying to get, and he said, if you want to learn something, come to me. And he gave me this card, and I just looked at it. Yeah, okay, sir. Tire's done. I'm on my way. And I took off. And I'm still researching, trying to find dance. And my mother said, you know what? You're getting frustrated. You should take that man's offer up. I said, okay. What I got to lose? Let me go over his house. I go over his house, knocked on his door. He goes, he said, hey, you made it. You ready for your first lessons? I'm going, Okay. So I walk in, he said, okay. He grabbed the rug and go, whoa. He said, show me what you got. You know, I thought I was hot stuff then because I had a little bit of tap. I thought I was real hot. So I go up and I go, stand back. I'm dangerous. I get up there and go, wink, wink. Ha! Yeah, I know. And he goes, interesting. Well, try this. And he got up there and said, pow. And he looked at me, and I looked at the floor. Then I looked at him, and he still looked at me. I said, mine don't look like yours. He said, if you want to learn, I'm here to help. So our friendship became over 2 years. I was with this guy. Come to find out, that was the same guy at the place that didn't make it because it was closed. I would go to class. We would dance from 7 o'clock to 1:30 in the morning. And late at night, there was this movie, musical came out. And you got to understand, during those times, not many Afro-Americans or blacks were on television. But on this occasion, there was an all-chorus line of black women, black men singing, and all-star cast. Then all of a sudden I look and said, that's that Cab Calloway guy. Oh, and this same guy, Bill Bojangles Robinson was in it. Everybody. But at the end of the movie, where these two guys were crazy, outrageous, flying down steps and splitting on the floor, and bam, boom. I'm going, wow. Next morning, I told my friends, did you see that on TV? You got to see that on TV. What you saw on television? This great musical, and these guys were flying in the air. Nobody believed me. Nobody. And I was disappointed because, did I dream that? I couldn't believe it. Went to tap school, and the teacher, what's wrong? You look disappointed. I saw this movie the other night. Nobody seems to recall what it is. What was it? And he's the guy, and I explained it. He said, wait a minute. And he pulled out a drawer, had 8x10 photographs. Look at this. And there it is. It was that movie, but behind the scenes. I said, oh, that's the guy that worked with Shirley Temple. That's the Heidi Ho guy. I said, oh, that's you. And then he said, yep. Yeah, that was
Fayard Nicholas.
Fayard
from the
Nicholas.
Nicholas brothers.
Yeah, that's who I was dancing with for 2 years and a half and didn't know. I told my mother, I said, hey, Mama, you heard of the Nicholas brothers? Sure I have. That's who I've been dancing with, you big dummy.
You big dummy.
But it wasn't for Fayard. That started, he gave me my first job, assisting and really learning tap choreography, learning a different style. He introduced me to Frenchie. And it's the weirdest thing about these people, because during that time of them not working, you wonder what happened to dormant to showbiz, because it changed.
60s and 70s.
Yes, 60s, around the 60s. Fayard and them were lucky because they were still working. They were doing Las Vegas, going back and forth. Sinatra was still out. But a lot of the great acts had to go into their other jobs. And then he was introducing me to, well, here's a guy named Frenchie, and you need to learn some stuff from him. Where are we going? We're going to, I'm thinking we're going to a dance school, you know. And I go here, and it's a cleaners, you know. And it's cleaners. Well, you're taking me to the cleaners. I'm going here, and you know how the cleaners, the clothes, it goes around. And this guy named Clarence Frenchie Landry came out, and he worked with Duke Ellington's orchestra. He had a group called the Three Hi-Hatters. And he said, yeah, I want you to take him, Frenchie, and show him some stuff. He said, okay, fair. And he yanked me and said, where are we going? We're going into the cleaners. In the middle of the cleaners was this...
The laundry.
The laundry, yeah, the laundry. And it's this tap floor he has in there. While everything's getting clean in laundry, here we are dancing in there. And then from him, he brought me to Esmond Mosby, which was a common comedic dancer. We call it eccentric dancer. And he had a dance team. I said, do all your friends dance? He got everybody. He was like, they were the Three Chocolatiers. And they're the ones that created the dance called the pecking. You do the peck. And I would learn comedic dancing from him. Then from him, he met me with Frances Neely. I learned women's chorus line dancing. And from her, I learned Argelia Thompson. I used to do acrobatics, flips and stuff. And we had to do somersaults, back somersaults, splits, come back, and all crossover. And I met a series of dancers that were in different elements that I wouldn't have never. Argelia was a barber. He's in the barber shop tapping, cutting people's hair. I'm going like, wow. I mean, you don't know who's out there in the streets that are famous dancers. But I got a chance to sit down, work with them, and write down. I wrote down notation. I had wrote down everything I did, from Frenchie to John Bubbles, the father of rhythm dance. Got a chance to work with him. You know, all of these different people, because I said, it's valuable. It was just, at that time, nobody was thinking about the tap idiom or the jazz idiom or the vernacular of it. So that's how I got a chance to get into it.
And I remember one time, all the dances that I put on or had something to do with, whether it was a Balboa dance, a swing dance, a Lindy dance, I would always try and have hire Chester just to show up, do one number and then leave, just because I wanted to kind of keep it going, what he's going, even though nobody in the club would be tap dancers, but I wanted to just show everybody Chester and tap dance, just to show people, to keep it viable, to kind of keep the ball continuing. And a lot of times Chester would often, without telling me, he would show up with other dancers as well. And that's how I met Joseph Wiggin when he was about 14 or 15 years old. And so he would show up with a lot of these young people. And one particular time, I'll never forget it, because it totally shocked me. And it was in Long Beach. It was up on the corner of Pine. I'll never forget the ballroom upstairs on a corner. And he showed up with these two very little girls. They were 10 and 12 years old, I believe. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I knew they were good because he brought them. So I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen now? Who are these girls? And it was Tony's daughters. It was the granddaughters of Fayard Nicholas. So they were the Nicholas sisters. And they were insane. They were so good. They were just like their grandfather, but at 10 and 12. I mean, most of us have seen what the Nicholas brothers, when they do Lucky Numbers, and some of the acts they did when they were really, really young. This is exactly what these little girls did. They were so professional and so mind-blowing. But again, it was just Chester would just show up with them and just be like, yeah, check it out. Look who look who I brought. This is the Nicholas sisters. I'm like, what? You're kidding me. Like, yeah. And they, of course, steal the show and then make me look really good because I brought him who brought them, and yeah. So
he was promoting.
Yeah, I turned into a promoter, and I didn't even mean to.
He was. Peter would go around the whole Los Angeles area and make things happen. Hey, I got another club. I said, what? When I brought the first kids there, I remember the first time you ever had the, what's that? Peter had to, I'm going to bring an act, and it's going to bring in an act. I said, I'll bring them in. Peter, where are they at? Chester? I'm bringing them. They're in. And the guy came in. I brought the kids. He said, they're kids. What are we going to do with kids? And Peter's like, wait a minute. He said, the kid. I said, no, don't worry about it. He said, Chester, we're not allowed to have kids. They're going to be drinking. They can't have the kids behind the bar. I said, don't worry, Peter, we got it. We're going to make this work. Peter's like, I'm not worried, it's him. So everybody was like, but when the kids got ripping up the floor and everything else, and they walking out, the guy ran back. We got to have them back. I said, no, they're too young. You can't have them. But Peter got them in there. He would get the kids in.
Show business.
That's right.
I learned fast. So as you guys know, Chester's band leader, musician, choreographer, film producer, dancer. think of anything else. I would imagine by now, we do have a few minutes left. 10 minutes left. What? Oh. That's like... He's too young. He's too young.
Did you see how he did it?
There's a lot of stuff we haven't even touched base on. Kessis is happy. Yeah. You're not too young, Chester. We can keep going.
I'm sorry.
Good. With this, what we've talked about is a lot of different stuff. I've been trying to steer it, keep it towards the dance, and not get too far out of that world, because there's a few worlds of Chester. But with that said, does anybody have anything curious they might want to ask Chester? Yes. Here, take this microphone. That way everybody can hear you, and that way you guys can just pass it down there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When people talk about Savoy style and LA style, what is the difference? Is there any difference?
Yeah, there is. But the root of the dance is always the same. When you say swing dancing or we say Lindy hopping, it's the region on where you come from. Like the East Coast would do it, the dance a certain way. And in some of the classes, you hear me talk about rooted, where's your core? Where's the root? Well, the core is the main force of your chest. Like in West African, we always talk about the chest as just the core, from the ear down to your hip, and that is the main thing. When you're doing Lindy, 5, 6, and 7th beats are always your main core that you can change up your inner rhythm. You can go from different direction, and that's the difference. Is we call curving. Is when you take the lady and you swing out after the 5 and her back moves towards you, you're watching each other come out. Competition-wise, if you're going for speed, like it changed from Shorty Snowdom into the Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, they would do a circle 360, then slant out. The follower would fly out off of 5. So if you're talking about Hollywood, it would be... you would go, that 5 doesn't go behind the foot. It would launch out, which slingshots the follower like this, right out. So the style, you'll see the style and the variations of the body movement completely. If it's Central Avenue, it's a thing called spiking. The 6th beat, you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, spike, swing out, and then drop back down. While the girl goes forward. You see a lot of that with Maria Bryant. If you ever seen the video called Jammin' the Blues. You know, Jammin' the Blues will show you a lot of the different variation style of it. And the Archie Savage would be one of the male dancers. Okay.
Thank you.
And to follow up on that, I knew a lot of the Los Angeles dancers. A lot of them were my teachers, especially when you have to be sometimes it helps to be specific on the definitions in which you're talking about as well. In Los Angeles, none of the dancers, they didn't call what they did as Lindy Hop.
Right.
They called it the Lindy. It comes from the Lindy Hop. It's part of the evolution. And so when you look at all the movies from World War II, whether it's Lenny Smith and Kay Vaughn dancing or Dean Collins and Jewel McGowan, they didn't call that Lindy Hop. They called it either just if you knew who Dean was, you would call it Dean's Lindy. And if you didn't know who he was, you would call it just the Lindy. And what they consider the Lindy Hop, well, that's what they're doing back in New York. And that's a faster dance. It's a more acrobatic dance. And obviously, this is getting out of the style question a little bit, but you'll notice in the evolution in just the Lindy, what you see in Los Angeles movies, there's never any Charleston variations. It's triple step basic, it's all basic triple step based. And you can see it's part of this evolution. It looks a lot closer to either what we call boogie woogie in Europe, or it's also part of the progression to West Coast swing. And many of those dancers, like Irene Thomas, for instance, she called what they did in LA during World War II, she called it West Coast swing. It's just not the same West Coast swing we know today in the studios. But so it's a much slower dance as well. So it's a huge library of styles, and it kind of gets right back to like one of the things I always like to ask people when they ask questions like this. It's like, well, what year, what city, what song, who are you talking about? Because there's as many styles, as Frankie says, as there are dancers, And but it's one of the biggest questions I had as a beginner when I started dancing, and I asked this question to every single 80-year-old that I ever met, regardless of what cities they used to go to. So it's a very interesting thing. Today we have like a 100-year filter of dance from thanks to YouTube, of course. And so we've mixed so many. Today we taught a little thing from Carolina Shag, which is a completely different dance. But Carolina Shag it's very New York influenced. It did come from, the basics did come from New York. Even though it has a foreign name to it, Carolina Shag, it is a dance that came from New York and Lindy based. But it's 6 count, it's triple step bass, it's very slow, New York really had a huge influence on America, even though all of America wasn't necessarily Lindy hopping. But it did have an influence, for sure, whether it went to St. Louis, whether it went down to New Orleans or whatever. And that's been part of my I've been digging into that research, to what degree did New York influence different parts of America? And it definitely did, for sure. Next question. We have time. Yes, sir, in the back there. We have our official mic runner.
I have a personal question to Chester, because you have so much enormous amount of energy. I want to ask, how many hours are you sleeping per day?
That's a very good question. I think he gets asked this almost every year in Harangue. Yeah. Is it possible to have a serious answer about this?
Yeah, but bro, I'm telling you.
What are you able to humanly get away with and still live?
Okay, I'll put it like this. I usually, when I'm working, I'm constantly, my mind goes, and he knows, they usually have to stop and say, we got to go get something to eat. I'll just keep going, I would do, I would average about three or 4 hours a night to sleep.
And you can keep that going? Or do you eventually crash and you have to?
I've kept that, the longest I can keep that going, something, not unless I'm doing a show. If I'm doing a show and I work until I know the show is completely, then my body will go, and I'm out, but like between 3 and 4.5 hours, I sleep, and then I'm moving. But I know I have a limit. I know what time. The longest I've done that was about 2.5 weeks, like in Harangue. Then I had to really stop because I started hallucinating, seeing things. I said, no, you were there, and now you're over here. I remember I did this one show, and I came in one night, and my mother said, "You all right?" Yeah, my body's just going out. She said, "Oh, yeah, you want to cook you some dinner?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And I sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and I just did like this. I said, boom, and I was out. I swore I was out for about 10 minutes. I said, "Oh, I got to get me something to eat. Oh, I got to get my food." I woke up, and the living room was dark. Everything was dark. I said, "Oh, what's happening?" Then I looked around, and nobody was in the room. And then I looked outside, it was nighttime. I said, "What?" Then it was like 4 in the morning. I said, "Oh, man, I missed dinner." And I said, "Oh, man." And then my mother walked down, "Hey, you finally woke up, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, where's the food?" And I looked in the kitchen, they didn't even leave it out for me. I looked in the ice box, I said, "Well, what happened? Where's the food? I thought you went to sleep." I said, "Well, I was just asleep for about 10, 15 minutes. Come on, where's my food at?" "No, that was 3 days ago." That was, so I was in a comatose, like, and So, I mean, time goes, what can I say?
Show business. Good question. Next question. Over here. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so last year I saw you. You told me that you're working on a choreography with helicopters, which I believe you because you're Chester. So I was wondering if you can tell a little bit about that or other interesting, fascinating projects that you experienced in your lifetime.
The helicopters was with a friend of mine, Josh from Seattle,
it's true.
Washington. Little Josh. He was a sergeant around the Army, and he was getting promoted, and he was retiring. And he asked me, Chester, would you come down to my retirement? Yeah, okay, what you want me to do? And he said, I'm choreographing this thing, I need you some help. I said, okay. I would come down there, and Josh is like, on the Army base. They said, oh, this guy can dance, because he's Lindyhop, and he's teaching everybody there. And they wanted to do this flight aviation. I said, what kind of patterns you guys gonna do? Oh, God. I'm thinking that they were like little hot helicopters. So, I said, well, why don't you go like this? First of all, you're gonna get a song. What song you gonna use? And then you elevate them all. They all gotta come up this way. And I'm just showing the guy, and the guy he's writing down all of this stuff. And then on this beat of the song, they should turn this way, and they're gonna come there. I'm thinking that that's teeny weeny little, small little helicopter. They're not. If you go down near San Diego, you know that.
Oh, Camp Pendleton.
Yes. Here they are.
Apache helicopters.
Yes. I mean, no, he had those big,
Oh, the Hueys.
Hueys and guys with the guns. It was like 47 helicopters. And I walk out there, and they're giving the band. I'm thinking like, oh, this is so nice. And all of a sudden you hear, and I go, what the? And you see the choreography, my choreography out there, I'm like, what the hell? And you see out in the field, these big old giant, and we're like this. The audience is like, oh, no. And then you can hear the music because they had the speakers inside of each helicopter, so it keeps them in sync with the music. I said, oh, damn. I've never seen nothing like this. I thought it was like, and Josh was like, yeah. Did you like that shit? I said, yeah, you got me on that one. I didn't know that's what that was about, the helicopters.
Holy shit.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I've done some crazy stuff.
What did you do for, we talked about this earlier. You mentioned the movie Cotton Club.
Oh,
1983.
83. 83.
Most of you have seen, I would hope, seen the movie Cotton Club, right? Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got a chance to get it last year. We got a chance to restore that movie. Originally, when the movie came out, it was 46 minutes of choreography cut out of the movie. The one you saw with Richard Gere and Gregory Hines and all of that. And it was a good movie, And I remember when that was casted, Skip Cunningham, all of us, and a lot of dancers. I was going to go too. I said, no. I said, who's directing the film? It was Francis Ford Coppola. I said, he's good, but he doesn't know how to make no musical. He does not. He's the guy that directed The Godfather. I said, the Cotton Club's going to be another Godfather. He aimed it more on the gangster side than the musical side. And the people came in there to see the dancing, but it was never done. So it's been hidden all these years, and last year they finally put back in the 46 minutes. And you can go online and type in, I want to get a DVD copy of Cotton Club Unedited rendition. They finally released it. But it's interesting, Norma was there in it. Norma.
Is Jimmy Slide in that too?
Yeah, Jimmy,
Slide, yeah.
Jimmy, Buster, a lot of them, because they did the Cotton Club scene, the Hoofers Club. When you go into the club, Chas Young is in it. Chas is dancing. Brownie, he created the chair dance. That's Brownie and the Hoofers Club. The chair dance was a dance that all the hoofers would go to a place. If it's raining outside, you didn't have no apartment, no money for rent, so they would go to the Hoofers Club. But the law of the Hoofers Club, you got to keep dancing. You should be in the room dancing because the guys, his piano, his big hall, and they're just cutting rugs, just doing it. And you can't, no sleeping. There's no sleeping. So he said, man, I'm so tired. So they advised the technique. You can sit in the chair and you're asleep, but you're... As long as you're moving, you're all right. They won't touch you, you know. And he created a thing called the chair dance and stuff.
Good, that very good question. Yeah. Next question. We still have a little more time. A little more time. Questions?
We're just gonna go back and forward.
It's gonna go back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about martial arts. Chester, I know you...
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have another hour or two? Perfect. Okay. Good. Good.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, the way you choreograph.
Yeah.
I'll lead into this. There was a year in Harang. Harang used to do like a film every year. Him and this Jan Forshell, his nickname was Fish. They would spend the entire Harang shooting a movie, and they would take the idea usually from a major motion picture and then change it. And one year was the year that Mission Impossible came out. And of course they filmed Mission Unswingable. And at one point of this, I guess I was the villain, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and Eddie,
the cue ball,
Yeah.
and he was the main henchman. Peter was the henchman.
and there was this fight scene, and he took me aside and he said, "Okay, Peter, I want you to do, fist, block, kick, block. I'm gonna count it out the same way you would do in the Lindy class. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, or whatever." And he said, "Okay, do it again, faster, faster, faster. 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right?" So that's 8 counts, for example. And then he did the same thing to Eddie. Took Eddie to side, and he did the same thing to Eddie. I had no idea what they were doing. And then he put us together, face to face. And he goes, 5, 6, 7, 8, boom, 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 boom. And it worked perfectly. Like, I have no idea how he did that. But that was my introduction to choreography, fighting choreography with Chester. And it was the most amazing thing. I was like, oh, that's how they do that. And yeah, so anyways, yeah, I've seen tons of his choreography now. And probably the most legendary fight choreography, personally, in my personal opinion, to bring the old-timers back into this. There's a very, very famous historical hotel on Central Avenue in Los Angeles called the Dunbar Hotel. And what this hotel was the place where all black entertainers could go and stay. And it was a very, very upscale, very nice hotel. So Duke Ellington would stay there when he went to Los Angeles on tour, or even Louis Armstrong, or whoever. And to make a long story short, this poor place kind of fell into disrepair, as so many other buildings do, not just in America, but everywhere, right? Unfortunately. Well, Chester was part of the renovation and the preservation of the Dunbar Hotel. And one of the things he did was he shot a movie at the Dunbar Hotel, and he hired all of the old-timers. So I'm talking about Fayard Nicholas, Leonard Reed, and there's a whole script behind it with mobsters and gangsters, and he did this incredible fight choreography with these 70, 80-year-old guys fighting about, over, yeah, and even some really cool effects. Jumping in the air, doing splits and kicking
The bullets out in the air.
kicking bullets out of the air with tap shoes, and I'm going to bug you about that because we've talked about this before. And everybody wants to see this movie you did about the Dunbar Hotel.
I just pulled it out. I'm going to redigitize it. It's called Things Ain't What They Used to Be. That's from the song. Yeah. And Leonard Reed even got it. I said, Leonard, you want to do a movie? I'm thinking, like, there ain't no way I'm going to get Leonard Reed. They said, Yeah, what do you want to play? I want you to play gangster. Okay, no problem. I said, oh my God, I got Leonard Reed and Skip Cunningham and all these famous people just saying, oh, he said, Chester's doing a movie. Let's have fun. Let's go do it. And they just jump in there, and we're doing musical numbers out in the middle of the street. That's when we learned Ball and the Jack, remember?
Yeah.
We learned how we was out in the middle of the street doing Ball and the Jack, and there were people in the cars driving by like, what's going on out here? And then we did that, and Leonard would shoot the bullets like it was supposed to be a scene like we were supposed to arrest him and the police for it. We got the place surrounded, Leonard. He said, give it up. You'll never take me alive. And he goes, bam, 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 bam. And everybody's trying to duck and dodge. He said, we got to get close to him. Somehow we got to get close to him. He said, the guy says, you, go over here. I said, what? He said, go out there and block those bullets. What? Block the bullets? Yes, here. Here's a pair of tap shoes. Go out there, block the... So I just run out there, and he go, bam, bam, bam. And we're like, boom, bam, boom, bah, crack, boom, bah, boom. And the bullets are going... And we had effects at the same time doing that. And Leonard, it was crazy. People out in the street looked at us like, what are they doing over there? You can see the effects of it going up there. So it was crazy.
And when you mention some of the movies, maybe some of the feature films.
That I choreographed?
Sure.
Okay. How many of you seen Blade?
Blade?
Yeah, I did the second Blade. I worked on Blade. I did in let me go back. And I got out of high school. I was assistant choreographer, got into stunts. I did a movie called The Night Stalker about a vampire in Las Vegas. I've done that. 78, I did a movie called The Killer Elite about a bunch of assassins with James Caan. I did a movie called The Champ with Ricky Schroeder, John Voight. I did Freebie and the Bean. It was a comedy movie. In the 80s, I had a chance when I was working in the stunt world. I was mixing martial arts with the stuntmen because it was a great separation. We pulled it together. The great Gene LaBelle, the one that's the father of what we call mixed martial arts, the got mixed martial arts. I was working with him, Haywood Nishioka, which was the author, the writer that helped Bruce Lee get his book called Jeet Kune Do, because in the 66, he was doing Wing Chun, and a TV series was called The Green Hornet at that time. And then he left, hooked up with Haywood, and wrote the book, and did a TV show called Longstreet in 1978. 84, I did a movie, then that's when they pulled me in, I did a stunt. I was a bad guy. I died 4 times in it.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck Norris. Yeah. I got a chance to meet Chuck Norris and fight Chuck Norris. Yes, and they called me and said, hey, Chester, do you want to be a bad guy? And Gene LaBelle and them said, yeah, we need something. And I had a crew of martial arts. I had my own team. We called the Flaming Dragons. And I have about 3 different organizations. I tell you, I have the Tiger and Dragons. We were the Shadow Warriors and the Hapkido. And they called us in to do this routine. And the movie was called The Octagon. You can see it on YouTube and stuff. I'm a ninja in it. You could tell I'm the skinny ninja.
But he actually enjoyed beating you up.
Oh yeah, he did.
Right.
Yeah, he said.
What was the story about?
It's a scene. We supposed to infiltrate this senator's house, and we supposed to kill off the family. And he just went on a date with this lady, and he takes her home, and he said, wait a minute, something's wrong in your apartment. I can sense it, Chuck Norris sense. Ooh, that's Chuck Norris, what do you say? So he said, get down. And then we come out of the shadows. And then Chuck Norris does his thing. I said, get him. I said, oh man, you guys you're making me look bad. So I go in at him and roundhouse him in his rib cage. Pull the wire out around his neck. I got choking him. I got Chuck Norris now. And he grabs me, looks me over, boom, lifts me up, and boom, kicks me in the chest, and I go through a glass door. That's my first dying scene. I said, oh, man. I said, do we have to retake that? He said, no. I said, good. I said, that was a good kick, you know. And then I walked home, got home. In those days, you know, cell phones weren't little. Cell phones were this big. You know, I said, okay. I get home, the rings ring. Yeah. Hey, Chester, how you doing? You okay? No, I'm just soaking. What's up? He said, Chuck wants you back on the set tomorrow morning. I'm already dead. I said, man, I died. No, he want you and your crew to be back tomorrow. He has another scene. I said, you can't conjure me back from the dead. I said, I'm dead. He said, no, he likes the way you die. He wants you to die again. Oh, man. And it was funny because with the rehearsal, you know, we had to rehearse. And I grabbed him, and Chuck said, okay, I'm going to throw you over, Chester. I'm going to go. I said, I'm grabbing him, and I'm choking him. He said, I'm going to throw you. He goes, Hey, Chester, you're not flowing with me. You got to go. I said, wait a minute, Chuck. Anybody got a camera? I'm seizing this moment. I don't want to go home and say, look, guys, I'm killing Chuck Norris.
Nothing's better than getting killed by Chuck Norris.
That's it. Nothing
exactly.
better. Nothing better. So,
We got time for one more, maybe. In the back.
Is this? Yeah,
Perfect.
it's working. You've done so many projects. Is there a project on your mind which you haven't had a chance to do yet and you would like to do it?
yes, there is. There's a series of projects. What I'm aiming for right now, doing the world of dance. I have other things, but the world of dance that did not is, I've done certain films. Even right now, I have certain films I've done for other people, and it's good. Hollywood to me is like a hit and miss thing. You know, you might get a good movie, you might not get a good movie. You know, I wind up being, what's that, La La Land. I've done La La Land. I'm in that. 8 seconds of fame. But that was an accident. I got into La La Land. I've done Winchell, the story of Walter Winchell. I've done Tower of Terror, but they were all dance related. And I said, you know, I want to do something in the world of dance that's going to be really good. So of course, like Mr. Loggins and I, we work with a lot of these legends. In order to keep it alive with the dance and everything, I'd like to do a series of films on different people's lives since we knew them very well. I worked with Norma Miller, and I was with her for 36 years. And she wrote down a script. We have a script. We got an outlet. We're doing that. So I'm going to do a film on the Savoy Ballroom, a motion picture. I want to do a complete, you know, how when it was built. All right, we're going to end off with the Harvest Moon Ball. That's what we're going to end the film with. And I already did a budget check on it. The guy said, He said, you got a line producer? I said, yeah, I worked on a line. I did it. It's going to wind up. In order to do it correct, I have 3 budgets, $62 million. About something like that, to bring it back. Because reconstructing the music, the dance, that's one. Then also, my second film I want to do is Story Central Avenue. I have that, and the Hoofers Club, and the Leonard Reed story. I have rights on that. And Leonard's wife gave me the rights on that. And I got his book out. You have his book, right? You know, Brains as well as Feet. So I have all of those. I'm trying to get the backing on that. So those are things I would like to do. And do some good innovative choreography with it. Since we got new technology to film, you know, I'm going to put that and mix those things together.
Does that answer your question? Yeah?
Yeah.
Crazy, right? It's like one project you ever did. It's like, well, I got about 5. I need 62 million. Oh, boy. Well, I really hate to pack it up because I'm sitting here thinking of so many different stories to go on. And one of them that I have to maybe, now that you brought up the Leonard Reed story, one of Leonard's birthdays at his house, me and Chester went, and there was quite a few old-timers there. Bobby Shear from the Jiving Jackson Jills was there, and of course Fayart Nicholas was there. And there was just one part of the evening I'll never forget, and it was Fayart and Nicholas and Leonard. Fayart and they're sitting on the couch, and they're just having a little private conversation, and me and Chester just happened to get a little earful from what they were talking about. And what they were talking about was the girls back in the 30s and 40s. And of course, they're talking about all the what I would consider the A-line superstars. And they were talking about some extremely personal stuff that we could never talk about today on stage in public. But those stories that we heard were quite incredible stories. And so I look forward to seeing this movie that Chester's going to do on Leonard Reed's life, because it is certainly an incredible one. And I think that's a good moment to close with that. We can all hope. So put your hands together for Mr. Chester Whitmore.
Voila.
You never thought we'd do this in Lithuania.